42% of people will struggle with their weight their entire life. Is that destiny? Or is that a decision? 42% of adults in the United States are living with obesity right now. Not overweight, obese. That's almost half the country walking around carrying more weight than their body was originally designed for. And you know what the most common thing people say about that? It's their choice. Like it's that simple. Like one morning you just wake up and go, yeah, you know what? I think I'll be overweight. Sounds good. Pass me the donuts. I walk along this river a lot. I do my best thinking out here. Something about moving water and moving feet that just opens up the brain. And lately I've been thinking about this question that keeps coming up everywhere. In conversations and comments and the way people look at each other. Is extra weight a choice? Or is it more like a sentence? Like something that just happens to you? Something you didn't fully sign up for but somehow ended up serving anyway? And I'll be honest with you, I have skin in this game, literally. I'm not talking about this from the outside looking in, all detached and objective. I have been the guy. I have been the guy in the photo where everyone else looks normal and you're standing there thinking, wait, when did that happen? When did I become the before picture? When did my relationship with food become something I needed to have a relationship with? Nobody tells you when it happens, by the way. There's no announcement, no moment where you cross a line and someone hands you a certificate. It just accumulates, like interest on a debt you didn't know you were taking out. So let's actually talk about this. Not the way magazines talk about it, with the airbrushed covers and the lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks headlines that have been recycled since 1987. Not the way diet companies talk about it. Companies that make, by the way, somewhere around $72 billion a year in the United States alone, selling you the solution to a problem they have a financial interest in keeping unsolved. Let's actually think through what's really going on here. First, let's deal with the "it's a choice" crowd, because they're not completely wrong. Every single day you make choices. You choose what goes in your mouth. You choose whether you move your body. You choose whether you take the stairs or the elevator. These are real choices. Nobody is forcing you to eat the entire pizza. I mean, nobody except yourself at 11 p.m. when you're stressed and tired, and the pizza's just sitting there looking at you like an old friend who never judges you and always makes you feel better. That pizza loves you unconditionally. At 11 p.m., that matters. But here's where the "it's a choice" argument starts falling apart. Because it assumes that everyone is making that choice from the same starting line. And that is just not true. Let me give you some numbers, because I love a good number. Researchers have found that genetic factors account for anywhere between 40 and 70% of a person's body weight. 40 to 70%. That means before you've eaten a single meal, before you've made a single choice about anything, your DNA already has strong opinions about where your weight is going to land. Your ancestors, people who survived famines, who walked across continents, who needed to store every calorie efficiently just to make it through winter. They passed you a body that is extraordinarily good at holding on to energy. That's not a flaw. That was a survival feature. It just doesn't work great in a world where food is available 24 hours a day on every corner. Now, does that mean you're completely helpless? No, absolutely not. But it does mean that two people can eat the exact same food, do the exact same exercise, live the exact same lifestyle, and end up at completely different body weights. And one of them will be told they're lazy, and one of them will be told they're disciplined. And the only real difference between those two people is the lottery ticket they got at birth. I had a friend, I'll call him Mark. Mark and I used to go to the same gym, eat at the same places, order the same things, complain about the same things. We were accountability partners before that was even a term people used. 6 months in, Mark had lost 15 pounds. I had lost 4. We literally compared food logs, almost identical. Same calories, roughly, same macros. Mark would look at me with this expression, not mean, just genuinely confused, like he couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong, and neither could I. That particular kind of confusion where you're doing everything right and getting different results is one of the most demoralizing things you can experience, because it makes you feel like the rules don't apply to you. Like everyone else got the manual, and you got a different, worse manual in a language you don't speak. That's when I started actually reading, not fitness blogs, actual science, because I needed to understand what was happening in my body. And what I found was fascinating and also kind of annoying. There's this hormone called leptin. Leptin is basically your body's "I'm full, stop eating" signal. It's produced by your fat cells, and it travels to your brain to say, hey, we have enough, you can put the fork down. And in people who struggle with weight, the brain often becomes resistant to leptin. So the signal is there. Your body is sending the message, but the brain isn't receiving it clearly. It's like having a smoke detector with a dead battery. The fire is real, the alarm just isn't going off. You keep eating not because you're weak or greedy or lack character, but because your brain literally isn't getting the memo that you're full. And then there's ghrelin, the hunger hormone, the one that makes you feel hungry. Studies have shown that in people who are sleep deprived, and most Americans are chronically, structurally sleep deprived, ghrelin levels go up dramatically. Not slightly, dramatically. You're not hungry at midnight because you have no willpower. You're hungry because you slept 5 hours and your hormones are having a full conversation without your permission. And the conclusion of that conversation is, we need food, go find food, 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 food. And cortisol, stress hormone, also plays a major role. When you're stressed, cortisol goes up. When cortisol goes up, your body craves high-calorie, high-fat, high-sugar foods. Because evolutionarily, stress meant danger. And danger meant you might need to run or fight. And running and fighting requires energy. Your body is preparing for a physical emergency that never comes. Because your emergency is an email from your boss, not a predator. But your body doesn't know that. Your body is still running software from 100,000 years ago on a problem from 2024. So when someone says, just eat less and move more, they are technically correct. They are also describing rocket science as just going really fast and turning left. Technically accurate, completely missing everything that makes it hard. But here's where I want to push back on myself. Because I think there's a trap on the other side too. The trap of saying, well, it's genetic, it's hormones, it's cortisol, it's the system, it's the food industry, it's everything except me, and using that as a full explanation, as a reason to stop engaging with the question entirely. And I have done this. I have absolutely done this. And I think a lot of people do this. And I understand why. Because it's exhausting to keep fighting something that keeps winning. There was a period in my life, maybe 2-3 years, where I genuinely believed that my body was just built this way, that this was just who I was, that some people are thin and some people aren't, and I was in the second category, and that was simply the reality of the situation. And in some ways, that was a relief, because it meant I didn't have to fight anymore. I could just exist. I could be the funny guy who loves food and doesn't apologize for it and makes everyone laugh about it. And honestly, there's something genuinely healthy about making peace with your body. I believe that deeply. The self-hatred that the diet industry runs on is genuinely toxic, and I'm not here to promote it. But there was also a part of me, a quiet, honest part that I tried not to listen to, that knew I wasn't actually at peace. I was avoiding. And there is a very important difference between peace and avoidance. Peace feels like acceptance. It feels open. It feels like you've processed something and come out the other side. Avoidance feels like you've just built a very convincing wall around the thing you don't want to look at. Peace feels light. Avoidance feels heavy. And I promise I did not intend that as a pun, but I'll take it. So what changed? What actually shifted things for me? Honestly, my knees. My knees changed everything. I was 38 years old and my knees started hurting on the stairs. Not dramatically, not in a way that required a doctor's visit or anything serious, just a low, persistent ache. The kind that says, hey, I'm sending you a note, a preview of coming attractions if current trends continue. And I remember standing at the bottom of a flight of stairs thinking, I am 38 years old. I have, if things go reasonably well, maybe 40 more years of stairs ahead of me. And I would like those stairs to be manageable. I would like the second half of my life to involve movement. I would like to be someone who can still do things. That was the moment. Not a diet, not a before photo, not a number on a scale that finally crossed the line I'd drawn for myself. Just stairs. The most ordinary thing in the world. And the quiet, slightly terrifying realization that the ordinary things don't stay ordinary forever if you don't pay attention. I started walking. That's it. Not running, not a gym membership with all the pressure and the equipment and the people who look like they were assembled by a committee. Not a meal plan with color-coded containers. Just walking. Along this river, actually. Every single day. And the first few weeks were genuinely, embarrassingly humbling. I felt ridiculous. I felt like I was doing the least impressive, least transformative, most trivially small thing a human being could do. Other people were running past me. Cyclists were passing me. I think a fairly determined pigeon overtook me at one point. A pigeon. And it didn't even look back. But something happened around week 3 that I did not expect. I started looking forward to it. Not because I was losing weight dramatically. I wasn't, not at first. But because for 45 minutes a day, I was outside. I was moving. The air was different. And I was thinking in a way that felt different from thinking while sitting at a desk or lying in bed. There's actual science behind this, by the way. Walking has been shown to increase creative thinking by about 81%, according to research from Stanford. Something about the rhythm of movement, the bilateral stimulation, the forward momentum. Your brain just operates differently when your body is engaged. Problems that felt immovable when you were sitting down start to look slightly less immovable when you're walking past a river, watching the light change on the water. And slowly, and I want to be honest about how slowly, things started shifting. Not just physically, mentally. I started making slightly better choices at dinner. Not perfect choices, not transformation montage choices, just slightly better ones. I'd have one less drink. I'd stop eating when I was full instead of when the plate was empty. I'd go to bed at 10:30 instead of 1 a.m. and actually feel what a difference that made in everything. In my hunger, in my mood, in how I talked to people, in whether the donuts in the break room had power over me or didn't. Because here's the thing about change that nobody tells you. It doesn't happen because you decide to be a completely different person overnight. It doesn't happen because you have a revelation, or you find the right app, or you start a new program on January 1st with maximum motivation and a brand new water bottle. It happens because you make one slightly better decision, and then another. And eventually, those decisions compound. And the compounding looks from the outside like discipline or willpower or some special quality that certain people have and others don't. But from the inside, it just feels like I walked today. I chose the thing that was slightly better for me. I went to sleep instead of watching another episode. Now let me talk about something that I think is genuinely underrated in this whole conversation. Environment. The physical and social environment you live in. We talk about individual choices as if those choices happen in a vacuum. As if you're just floating in neutral space, making pure, rational decisions based on perfect information. But you're not. You're making choices in kitchens, in offices, in neighborhoods, in grocery stores, in families, in cultures, in economic circumstances. And those environments are profoundly not equal. There's a concept called a food desert. Areas where access to fresh, affordable, healthy food is limited or essentially non-existent. About 19 million Americans live in food deserts. These are real places where the closest full grocery store might be miles away, and there's no public transportation to get there. And the closest option for dinner is the fast food place on the corner. And we're going to stand here and tell the people who live there that their weight is purely a personal choice? That if they just made better decisions, everything would be fine? That's not an analysis. That's a blame transfer. Or think about work culture. In many American workplaces, the culture of overwork has become almost a competitive sport. You brag about how little you slept. You eat lunch at your desk because leaving for lunch would signal a lack of commitment. You skip breakfast because you were up until midnight finishing something. You're too exhausted to cook in the evening, so you order delivery. And the delivery option's available at 10 p.m. when you're exhausted, and you have 45 seconds of decision-making energy left. Those are not a beautiful Mediterranean salad with grilled fish and lemon. Those are a burrito the size of your forearm. And the burrito costs $8 and takes 15 minutes, and it tastes incredible. And you are going to eat that entire burrito, and part of you knows it. And you're doing it anyway because you are a human being with finite resources, and you spent all of them already today. I worked in an office for years where the break room was permanently stocked with donuts, every single day. Someone, and I genuinely never found out who it was, this anonymous donut benefactor, was bringing donuts every single morning. And I want you to think about what willpower actually costs. Because people talk about willpower like it's a character trait. Like some people have it and some people don't. But it's not a character trait, it's a resource. Every time you walk past those donuts and say no, you are spending a unit of willpower. And willpower is finite, it runs out. By 3 in the afternoon, after a full day of decisions and emails and negotiations and saying no to donuts and managing your reactions and being professional and remembering things, your willpower tank is running on fumes. And that is when the donuts win. And that is not a moral failing. That is a human being running out of a limited resource. That's just biology. This is called decision fatigue. And the research on it is fascinating and also slightly disturbing. The more decisions you make throughout the day, the worse your subsequent decisions become. This is why studies on judges show they give harsher sentences in the afternoon than in the morning. This is why people make worse financial decisions when they're tired and overwhelmed. And this is why your diet falls apart at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, after a hard week, when you've been making good choices all day and you're just done. You are genuinely, biologically done. And the refrigerator is right there. So what do you actually do with all of this? What's the answer? I think the honest answer, the one that doesn't fit on a poster, is that it's both. It's a choice, and it's a sentence simultaneously. And the reason that's uncomfortable is because our culture desperately wants things to be simple. We want it to be either your fault or not your fault. Either you're lazy or you're a victim of circumstance. Either you should feel guilty or you should feel completely absolved. But the truth is messier than that. The truth is, you have real constraints that you didn't choose. Genetics, hormones, environment, history, economics. And within those constraints, you have real agency, real choices, real room to move. And both of those things are true at the same time. The shame model doesn't work. We have overwhelming evidence that shame and guilt lead to worse health outcomes, not better ones. When you feel terrible about yourself, you don't make better choices. You make worse ones. You comfort eat. You avoid the doctor. You stop trying because what's the point? Shame is not a motivator. Shame is a paralytic. But the helplessness model doesn't work either, because even within real constraints, small changes matter. Studies show that losing even 5 to 10% of your body weight produces significant positive effects on cardiovascular health, joint pain, sleep quality, mood, energy, cognitive function. 5 to 10% is not a transformation. It doesn't look dramatic. It doesn't make for a compelling before and after photo. It's just slightly better. But slightly better compounded over time is enormous. Slightly better is how everything actually changes. And here's the thing I want to leave you with. The conversation about weight in American culture is almost entirely about appearance, about fitting into a beauty standard that was designed by people who profit from you not fitting into it. That conversation is, I'll say it plainly, mostly a scam. It's designed to make you feel bad enough about yourself to keep buying things that won't fix the thing you feel bad about. The real conversation, the one worth having, the one worth walking along a river to think about, is about how you feel, about energy, about being present, about whether your body is going to be able to do what you want it to do in the years you have ahead, about playing with your kids or your grandkids without being winded, about traveling without pain, about being there, just being there in your body, in your life, for the people who need you. That's not about a number on a scale. That's about the quality of your one life. And that's worth thinking about. That's worth being honest with yourself about. That's worth a walk along the river. So is extra weight a choice or a sentence? I think it's a conversation, a long one, a hard one, a deeply personal one that looks different for every single person having it. And the worst thing you can do, the absolute worst, is shut that conversation down. Either by deciding it's entirely your fault and treating yourself accordingly, or by deciding there's nothing to be done and walking away from the question. Keep walking. Keep asking. Keep making the slightly better choice today. That's enough. That is genuinely, actually enough. So, what do you think? Is it a choice or a sentence? Tell me in the comments.